Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
I have great news for you. You are not being hosted by Phil Tarrant. You've got the A-grade host today, Alex Whitlock. Very pleased to be back. But more importantly, I have got a fantastic guest joining us today, a young man called Sam Gordon. He has got a fascinating background and an outstanding portfolio. He's been an investor for 10 years and he is just at the tender age of 29. Very successful in his own right. Sam?
Okay, Alex, thank you very much.
Great to have you here.
Thank you, mate. Great to be here.
You've got just chatting away offline and it's hard to cut the conversation short because your background is so fascinating. You went to school in Sydney, but you're a country boy.
Yeah.
You grew up out, whereabouts was it?
So I was down the Southern Highlands way, in the suburb of Yandera, which is a tiny little town of about 500 people. And I used to do the commute, the old 5 a.m. training every morning to school, and on training nights, which is 4 nights a week, as you get home at 10 p.m. every night as well. So it was
that's a long day and a big shift.
Yeah, big commitment. But
and your farm wasn't the sort of farm that most people are familiar with. Tell us what you farm there.
It's a rabbit farm. So the old boy he bought that. I think it was about 81. He bought that mechanic by trade and kind of built his own mill and then built the rabbit farm up by producing his own pellets and whatnot and his own stock feed, and it built from there into a pretty successful business. Yeah,
very cool. So you worked, I'm going to guess, and growing up in the UK, and I grew up in a fairly rural area. Oh, yeah. You know, everyone pitches in. You get used to hard work from day one, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
we all used to. We'd have a game. Like my brother and I both played soccer pretty competitively, and we both of us on Sundays generally were pitching in, and helping out with the family biz from a pretty young age.
So Sam, you decided not to become a farmer, and you become a very successful property investor.
Thank you.
So before we get in the guts of your investments and where you are today, just give us a bit of background into what took you down that path and why you didn't end up going into the family business of farming.
Yeah, so pretty much when I was I left school when I was 16, so I just got into year 11 and I was doing those big commutes, and it was just too much for me to try and chuck the extra workload of the HSE sort of stuff on top. So I left start of year 11. And I actually did go into the family business there for a bit, and was doing it for decent pay. And I did it because the pay was bigger than what all my mates were getting as apprentices. And I kind of stuck at it for a fair few years there, and it allowed me to build up a big enough kind of cash deposit that by 18, I was actually more interested in buying myself a car.
Yeah.
And I was looking for...
What car did you buy?
I didn't. So that was the good thing. I got talked out of it by the old boy. He offered me my grandma's 88 Corolla.
There you go.
The thing was struggling, but it was either that or buy myself a Toyota Supra, which I wanted desperately. But the old boy talked me into looking down the avenue of property instead.
So, and we'll come back to this in a second, but right now you've got 14 properties in your portfolio. You're about to get your 14th, is that correct?
I've got 11 that are 100% mine, and then I've got a duplex that's going unconditional next week, and another unit that's going unconditional next week as well.
That is outstanding in just 10 years of investing. But before we get to and start looking in detail at your portfolio, yes. So going back, so those years, so you're pretty good at soccer as well, not just like kick around the park. You were looking at a career in soccer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I was pretty good. Signed my first pro contract at 16 years old. I was kind of getting paid from that sort of age, and that also allowed me to help save, pretty quickly when I was on a pretty shallow salary back then as well. But it was kind of a combination between the typical, as you get a bit older in your teens and you kind of get into some stuff, maybe get into the parties and stuff like that, and then combine that with a couple of injuries and stuff that kind of dragged me back a little bit, unfortunately, and I didn't get myself on the road, I guess, to be successful with it as I probably should have been.
So your old man gave you some good counsel, late teens,
yes. Get
into property,
yep.
Use your money wisely, don't blow it on a motor. Mm-hmm. So what was the first place that you bought and where was it?
So it was in 2009. I bought a 2-bedroom unit in Wollongong, just in there behind. It's actually what is the new CBD centre, which was pretty good. They knocked down the old one and built this brand spanker in there. But yeah, at the time, it was an old, pretty clapped out. I think it was about 20 years old when I bought it. Yeah, it was just an old 2-bedroom unit. It was $275,000.
Okay.
And the market rent for that would have been only about $330,000, which, looking back today, knowing what I know now, she's pretty shallow. But
but that's good. That's in terms of the return, the cash flow on that. That's pretty good.
It wasn't too bad.
You try buying a 2-bedder now and getting that kind of return, you're going to struggle in most markets.
Yeah, for sure.
So just going back then and looking at your income, so you were you're being paid to play football, soccer.
Yep.
You were also how else were you earning money? Because what I'm leading up to, I'm just looking at how you put together the deal in terms of finance. You obviously got yourself a deposit together, but that's only one part of the story, as investors know.
Yeah. So pretty much I was, I think I was clearing after tax about $580 a week from work, so not too much.
Yeah.
But I was getting a couple of $100 a week from the soccer as well. And then I was working bars as well. I was working bar shift. That was probably, I think I was mostly like 3 nights a week as well.
Yeah.
Just trying to scrap together as much as I could.
So you're working hard.
Yeah, saving away.
Who did you get your first loan with?
It was actually One Direct, which was a subsidiary of ANZ.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah, so just like an online lender, and didn't know anything about brokers. Just kind of went out and
just went straight to the lender.
Yeah, just kind of went online and just tried to find the best rate that I could and whatnot. And I actually remember that's the only time I've ever done a split loan facility, because that was the thing. Actually, I completely forgot this. The rates were up around 7%.
That's right. Yeah.
And I fixed it 7.1 or something, and I think they kind of got up to about 7%. So. Yeah.
You know what? I love talking to people about buying 10 years ago, because you look at the rates today. Oh my God.
It's like half.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
You know, and they're going down still further. It's just, guys, you just don't know unless you were around in that time.
Yeah,
but
sure.
and you felt even then, sort of 6-7% felt pretty reasonable in terms of an interest rate.
Yeah, definitely.
So the property, just look at that unit that you bought down there in Wollongong. What was the process in terms of you tracking that down and identifying it?
So pretty much what I was doing was I was looking for anything from the hospital all the way down to the beach.
Yeah.
Because there's a strip there that's pretty much that's where all the industry is, all the cafes, between the hospital and the beach and the city centre and stuff. And I was kind of networking with a few different agents and trying to find the best thing that I could. Yeah, and I came across this unit and she offered it. It was kind of getting pretty hot then. It was when the first home owner grants had kind of just come in. It was getting pretty hot. And she called me before she put it to market. And I went down on the first open was on the Saturday, and I went down the Thursday night and I bought it on that Thursday night.
And you put the offer and said, look, I'll take it off the market for this.
That's it, yeah.
Do you still have that in your portfolio now?
No. So actually it was pretty lucky timing. I sold that. It settled in July 2017, so literally the peak of the Sydney market.
Yeah.
And I rolled those into a duplex deal that I'd done, like another duplex deal that I did. So it was pretty fortunate timing when I sold that. But
so what was the sale price?
I sold for $525, so I almost doubled it. Yeah, but
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
So again, at this stage of your career, you're playing soccer. You've had a couple of setbacks, but you still. Where was your mindset at that stage in terms of where you were going in terms of your career? You're a young man. You've left school. You've bought your first investment. Where was your headspace in terms of where you were going?
Well, this was the thing. I was trying to decide, I guess, what to do career-wise. And to tell you the truth, I kept working on the farm. I kept working on the farm for a while because it became a little bit of an integral part of the business there. They'd lost one of the workers, and I kind of went in and filled his spot. And so, looking back, I probably should have either gotten into real estate or got myself a trade, because I'm a pretty handsy sort of fella. Like, like to get stuck into stuff.
Yeah.
But the wage was finally starting to creep up. I was starting to make half decent money, and the security of having a job, it makes it a lot easier to borrow more money.
So you got your first place. At what point did you start thinking, hey, I can build on this? At what point did the penny drop, or did you go into it thinking I'm going to build myself a portfolio? No,
definitely not. This was quite funny. After I'd bought the unit, I was sitting at the dentist one day, and I picked up one of the Smart Property Investment mags.
Yeah.
Sitting there in the dentist, I never had read anything about property investment before. And I was sitting there, and the dentist came out, and I was actually disappointed when I had to go in for my appointment. And straight after, I went to
this is not a paid plug, by the way.
No, it's definitely not. That was the penny drop moment for me. And I went out and I bought every bit of material that I could get, and I read them religiously for years and subscribed to all of them. And that was where I built the knowledge from there.
Oh, you know what? When you first get into property, just that hunger for knowledge and you don't tire of hearing other people's stories. And when I bought my first unit kind of by accident when I was in Hong Kong in 1998. And for people who've listened in regular, they'll probably know my story. I sold advertising to a developer, and I used to I'd sell them an advert, and then they'd write a piece of editorial about negative gearing or, understanding leveraging or, one facet or another of investment. I used to have to read their content every month to sell them another. They wouldn't book 12 in a row.
Yeah, right.
And I ended up going in there and I've been reading something on just basically on capital growth and, some of the usual sort of stuff about Aussie property growing, on average sort of doubling in value every 7 to 12 years type thing. And I kind of bought a unit off the plan, not really on a whim. Me and my wife had been saving money to do something with. So we got kind of a 10% deposit.
Yeah.
But as soon as I made that decision, as soon as I bought, just the level of excitement, it felt like a door had opened for me,
It's crazy, yeah.
I put that money, and for me, a bit different to you, I bought off the plan, but as soon as I put that money down, I felt like I got a real purpose and a goal and a direction in terms of investment. So it's a big thing, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
It's so different being able to like buying something that's yours and you walk into your unit for the first time. It's a pretty crazy feeling.
And people say, that buying property as an investment isn't an emotional thing, but I think it really is an emotional thing. Yeah. I think you have to go in with a calm head and you have to go in with a business-like approach, but it is an emotional thing. You're buying bricks and mortar and you're providing, accommodation for somebody or for a family to live in, and it's yours, and you've got a responsibility to that. And you know what, and you have a wonderful opportunity to grow wealth, as a result of that. And if you use it effectively, it's a great little nest egg moving forwards.
Definitely, couldn't agree more, man.
Yeah. So the next one, what was the process?
So the next one was my girlfriend at the time. Her brother-in-law, he'd kind of done quite well buying land and then building on it.
Okay.
He had a few problems with it, so I kind of realised the pitfalls and what to avoid. And so this would have been around about 2012. I'd moved out of my unit because I kind of got hit by a few things. A lesson learned was change your timing belt on the old cars when you're supposed to change your timing belts. And then a couple of strata bills kind of stacked up and it made me move out of there. I moved back in with the parents for about a year.
Yeah, okay.
That was when, after about a year back in there, I realised it was time to maybe look at getting my own place again.
Yeah.
So, I started sourcing some land because I saw he'd done quite well out of it.
So whereabouts were you looking at the land?
This was down the Illawarra kind of area.
Okay.
I won't say exactly where it is because I kind of buy similar stuff for myself now. And so I sourced this land and I found this one pocket, it was in this cul-de-sac and it was 3 stages and he'd already sold out the first 2 as developer. The market had gone a bit stagnant in about 2012.
That was slow. It was slow back then.
Yeah, and it was perfect timing for me because it was just before Sydney taken off and I could get it for a really good price. And I went in there and he had about 200 grand on these blocks. And I think I just read you're supposed to be cheeky with the offers and going, I think I offered like 100 grand or something on this 200 grand block. And they just laughed me out and just said, mate, you're kidding yourself. Like, good on you for having a crack, but you're kidding yourself. And then about 3 weeks later, I was still looking for these different blocks. About 3 weeks later, they called me up and they go, what do you reckon about 150?
No way.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, look, mate, I'm only, this is like, I just told him this is my first place. Like, I don't have that much money. Because I was pretty strapped. I was only I think I pulled 13 grand out of a bit of equity out of the Wollongong unit and I was saving up the rest. So I think I came back at 120, just a bit of, bartering around. We finally agreed on 133. And I think he just wanted to clear one. And the reason, I think looking back now, the reason I think for it was he's cleared the one and within about a month, the other 5 had sold. And I think it was just, everyone was like, thought there was something wrong with them because none of them had sold. So and the others had all sold in the high ones. So I kind of got lucky on that one.
So what did you look to build on there?
So I just built a specky.
Okay.
I think I built for from memory it was about 204. And then I did all the landscaping, the retaining walls.
So you did it yourself?
Yeah, I did all that sort of stuff myself. And just finished it off. And I think when it was finished, I had it valued at about 450 and it cost me all up, I think 355 or something like that. So that was my first real taste of manufacturing equity, and that just got me so excited because it was big. It was big money for me.
So what's the time frame wise? What was the time frame from sort of haggling with the bloke to buy the block to actually sort of opened up the front gate and showing some tenants around? Was that for you to live in?
Well, this is the thing. When I bought it, I was kind of thinking it was probably going to be an investment.
Yeah.
But I was kind of 50-50. Couldn't really make my mind up because I was getting a little bit more serious with my girlfriend at the time. And so by the time it finished, I think I bought it late 2012. I think it was finished late 2013, I think it was. And then moved into it at the end of 2013.
With your girlfriend, family home?
At the time,
okay.
Yeah.
So now at this point, so you've got your original unit, which how much has that gone up in value circa? What would you say it was worth?
Not heaps, like maybe about 315, 330, something around that at that time, yeah.
So as a young bloke, you've got, my
150, maybe more, yeah.
You've got a fair bit of property. Yeah. You've got, what sort of LVR did you have on the 2 properties, just circa around that time? What's the size loan? What was the loan value?
I think the loan on the house would have been 300.
Okay.
Actually, and it would have been worth 450. So that's only about 65% LVR on that one. And then the other one was probably running about 70 as well. So maybe 65% LVR.
That's
across the board. Sorry, 65-70% LVR across the board there. So
you must have felt, going back then, and you're still a young bloke, you're 29, but you must have felt very empowered with having that kind of, with having achieved what you'd achieved and seeing, even though the money's tied up in the building, but knowing that equity is there.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to save, 250 grand, especially at that age. So it felt good.
So you've achieved these things. You've done well. You've bought two very, very different investments for two sort of quite different reasons.
Yep.
At this stage now, what are your thoughts about the future and the shape of your, the shape of your future investment strategies? Are you seeing yourself as having a big portfolio or just adding one or two? Where was your headspace?
Yeah, so at that point, that was when I was really starting to kind of get passionate about it, get pretty involved in it. And that was when I was doing as much research as I could. And that was where I kind of came across the positive cash flow sort of strategies.
Yeah.
And
2012, because that was a good time.
Yeah, definitely. So I was looking into that. And then because I'd done so well out of this buy and build, I was looking into the kind of combining the two strategies into equity plays and positive cash flow plays, which is still my strategy today because it's just works so well.
So, cast our minds back to 2012 and you'd had just flat growth in almost all markets. It was it's not the kind of the market that we're going through now where you've had sort of the drops because, depending on where you're buying or living or looking at, you've got anywhere from sort of a couple of percent through to sort of 15, 16, maybe even 20%. But back then it'd just been flat. And I'll give you some perspective. I bought my place or my principal place of resident in 2012. And I bought that it was a place in Pimble, a 4-bedroom house. I bought it for $1 million.
Yeah, right.
And they wanted a lot more. And I used a buyer's agent to do the negotiating for me. They wanted like 1.2 and I got it for $1 million. But I looked back over the records and 10 years ago that had gone for 900 and something. So that just gives you as a snapshot of where the market was, if you weren't buying in that time, it was really flat. And so what that meant was, from an investment perspective, you'd got this really sort of flat value, but you'd got rentals had gone up. So you were getting really good returns because you were buying places, and you were being able to rent them at maybe 6, 7, 8, 9% back then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, so you've got good equity in your portfolio and you're now sort of starting to think ahead. So what was your next strategy?
So the next thing was looking for the positive cash flow. I'd gotten to the point, I think at that point I was maybe only on about 50, maybe 55 grand a year. So I still wasn't making too much. The soccer money had gone up a bit though, because I'd had a couple of operations and I was out of the Sydney comps and I was kind of down. I was playing in the Illawarra, which money was pretty good down there. And so I kind of turned my mind more towards the positive cash flow strategies because I needed the cash flow to go on top of the equity boost I had. So I was able to release some funds. I actually had a couple of years off. I didn't buy again until 2015. I think I got a little bit comfortable.
Still good market to buy 2015.
Yeah, it was still good. So I went into state. So kind of first little dive into state, I was just kind of look in the back of the magazines, find something with over 7% returns and kind of hit those markets. Yeah. And I bought 2 houses in Adelaide. And, and I think one of them was 8.5% return on a house, and the other one was just under 8%.
Just gives a bit of details on what for those 2 places that what were you looking for specifically as a property?
Positive cash flow with future development potential.
So you're looking for land rather than apartments. You're looking for a house.
Houses,
okay. So it gives a bit of an insight into what you were actually looking for in terms of sort of the size of the block, what the proximity to sort of local amenities and so forth.
Yep. So minimum lot size in the area I was looking in was 300 square meters. So my blocks had to be minimum 6. Okay. For future duplex potentials and stuff like that. So the first one I bought was more. I was looking for something maybe a little bit bigger than this, but this property just popped up, and it was actually it was only 155K. It was pretty cheap, but it would have been worth probably about 180 back then.
Okay. And was that were there a family living there, or was that already a rental property?
It was a rental that a fellow was selling.
Okay.
But the good thing was about this, he'd already tidied it right up. So he'd given it a lick of paint, it recarpeted. This thing was ready to go. I didn't have to put any money into any work into it. I had it tenanted the day that it settled. I had it tenanted at 250 weeks. So it was about 8.5%.
What a great return.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Really happy with that one.
Quick question. So just at this period of time, 2015, you're playing soccer. Soccer's going pretty well.
Yeah.
Did you have any challenges with how did you approach going and raising finance? Because, now lenders are really, really tight now. It's hard to borrow now. But back then, did you have any challenges in terms of securing finance?
Look, it wasn't too bad because of the asset that I was going to buy.
Yeah, because you got good equity as well, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. So they lent me 80% on the house. So that took my loan. I took my loan up a bit, but it was all right. Like I was pretty happy with that. Yeah, because it went from 300 up to 360. Because I think the val at actually no, at that point, sorry, it had grown to about 500. So I was able to pull equity up to about the 400 at 80%, and then so I was able to go in with that as deposits, so that wasn't too. And because of the asset that I was buying, because it was so such a strong rental return, I didn't really have any problems with securing finance for that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And what was the time frame between buying the two places in Adelaide? Did you buy them both at the same time, or?
Yeah, it was actually funny. It was. I remember the APRA changes probably more clearly than most, because when I went down there was the APRA wasn't on the field yet, right? And things were kind of just starting to pick up. And I remember when I bought my first one, there was a little bit of stock on the market, and I just had the cream. I just picked the cream and just off lowballed everything, and picked up some really good deals.
So how do you find them? Were you getting these off market? Did you see them advertised?
One was on market,
Yeah.
From an agent that I'd been kind of networking with and trying to get in with, and just say to him, mate, anything you bring me, it's a good deal. I'll buy it. Tell the dude you don't have to advertise it. I'll buy this thing. No wait times and that. So it took the right sort of vendor, I guess, that wanted to sell quickly and just wanted someone to take it off their hands, which fortunately I found on that first one. And then the second one, that kind of just hit the market, and I was rang up and offered on the day, because I was actually down there at the time when it kind of hit. So that was kind of fortunate timing. But I remember, because I went down for the second one. When the first one was settling, I went down so I could call it a business trip, like checking in on it as it was settling. I don't know if I should have said that. No, it was all right, because I was checking on it when it was settling. Yeah, for sure. And then at the same time, I was driving around looking for some more deals and stuff, and this one popped up, and I went out and saw it. And I remember it clearly, because so many people, it was crazy from the month before when I'd been there. And when I got down the second time, when the first time there'd been maybe 25 properties on the market that I went and looked at in maybe 2 days, like I smashed them all in a day. And then the second time I went down there, I had about 30 properties at the start of the week when I'd rung up to fit in these 2 days. By the time I got down there was about a handful, maybe I think it was 4 or 5 properties still on the market, and they were all pretty average. So it was when I was down there, this thing popped up, and I pretty much rang him and said, I'll pay asking price right now.
Yeah.
And then that was maybe 2 months later, prices had gone up maybe 20 or 30 grand, like almost straight away in this period, because stock had tightened up so much. And then APRA pulled the handbrake on
investment lending.
Everyone went out of the market.
I really like your headspace, Sam. There's a lot of buyers that don't really quite understand how to deal with agents. And, look, the reality is we all know that the agent works on behalf of the vendor. Yeah. That's it. I say we all know that. Some buyers don't, which is how they manage to sell to them. But I think some buyers view sales agents as kind of being the enemy, and they want to kind of try and sort of outwit them. Yeah. But I think that a really effective way of working with an agent. I mean, an agent has got a number of objectives. A good agent wants to get the best possible sale price for the vendor. Yeah. That's an objective. Mm-hmm. But there's often a bit of a gap between what a vendor thinks is realistic and what the agent knows the market value is. Definitely. So presenting yourself as being a good buyer is really critical. Yeah. So, look, I'm here. I'm not going to muck around. Yeah. You put a deal in front of me. Yeah. I'm ready to move. Yeah. But in addition to that, being good at dealing with people, being a nice guy, dealing with people in the right way, being straight with them. Yeah. And I really like what you said about sort of, working with the agents and getting them, because they will then know as a buyer that you're serious. Yeah. That, you know what? It's only a small element. Being a nice guy or a nice girl, being nice to deal with. If you've got a couple of people and and you're liked, it's going to go in your favor.
It certainly does, mate. It goes a long way. Like these days, even for now, like I have those agents still ringing me now, because like you say, I got on quite well, a lot of them, and they knew I was ready to buy, and they ring me, and I've got some really good deals for both myself and my clients. Just out of that way, just them ringing them out of the blue and saying, "Mate, I got this deal. I don't know if you're still active, you're still buying." And we've picked up some really good stuff that way still.
So one of the things as well, and the reality of a sales agent is, and this is what you've got to understand as a buyer, to the sales agent, of course, I've got a responsibility to get the best sale price for the vendor. But look, let's be realistic. If I'm an agent and I can sell a property now for 1.7 million, or I can try and hang on and get 1.725 in 6 months' time, I need my commission. For sure. And as long as it's, if you get an agent that wants to make some commission and you put yourself forward, they will go back to the vendor and they will say, I really think you need to look at the offer that this person's put forward. Yeah. So I think, I
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, good astute.
You got to look at it from the agent's perspective as well. What's 0.025% on 25 grand for them, especially $1 million agent, but any agent.
Yeah.
For that sort of money, they're happy to get the commission, get it done. And as long as they still, most agents, as long as they're still doing a good job for their clients, they're still getting a quick sale. So.
And really, and again, the market isn't a sort of a static thing. Markets fluctuate. You look at the auctions from the week before, you look at what the stock on the market. So one price, probably maybe one price today, and it will change from day to day depending on who's in the market and who's offering. Anyway,
yeah, definitely.
I think good. It's good. I think understanding how agents work is really critical in good buying. Okay, well, look, we're probably not going to run through every single property. Let's just look at, I'd just like to talk to you about, there's sort of a bit of a shift in your life, and that changed perhaps the direction you went. Do you want to just give us an idea of how that worked?
Yeah, well, so I'll run it. I bought 2 more before this kind of came to fruition. Like I bought 2 more in Brizzy, and they were quite good buys, and I was kind of getting into a good headspace there. And I'd set a goal for myself that either at a certain point I was either going to make it in soccer, or I'd hit a certain point in my portfolio and I'd go into a different career that I'd always wanted to chase. And that was the Special Forces. I had this burning ambition. Both my brother and I always had it. He was a really good soccer player as well. And we both had, this is a funny thing, we both went for it. And we both kind of didn't make it on the same reason. And I went for it. And the thing I thought maybe was going to hold me back, I hadn't studied for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried about the aptitude test. You
jacked schooling because you couldn't be doing with the travel, but not because you couldn't do the study.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was always a reasonably intelligent fella, but I hadn't studied for 10 years. So I was nervous about this aptitude test. And I ended up acing this test. I absolutely killed it. I was so pumped. And I went into the medical thing. This is on the same day.
As a pro soccer player going, well, here we go.
Exactly. And I train every day. I felt so good, pumped, like, let's do this thing. And I go in, the first question they asked me, have you had any surgeries? And I just stunned mullet, just sitting there I've played soccer at a very high level for a long time. Yes, I've had surgery. They go, well, you can't go Special Forces. And it was massive for me back then. I think I was 26, and it was a massive change for me. It just, everything shifted in my life. It took me about a year. They said, look, you can appeal it and see what you do. And I wrote in.
So it was a hip injury that was the main thing that they had a concern over?
Yeah. So I'd had hip surgery at 19, and that was the thing. They said anything, I think it was knees, shoulders and hips. It was a blanket no. And they gave me this appeal process. I went through the appeal process, called the medical inspector, spoke to this guy on the phone for an hour. I said, mate, you set me any task, anything, put me against a whole squadron of these specialists. I said, I don't care, man. I'll do everything I can to get in.
Yeah.
And they just go, nah, man, it's just too much for liability. We can't. And I was like, mate, it was 7 years ago. I'm still playing. It just didn't matter. And it was a massive shift in my life. I won't say I was, mad depressed from anything, but it definitely changed the person that I was for quite a while there. And
I think if you want to be, you don't go in the Special Forces on a whim. If that's what you want to do, that is an all-encompassing goal.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's going to have an impact, particularly if it's hard to get your head around the fact it's not your intellect or your aptitude to learn. Yeah. It's not your general overall physical well-being. It's a historical injury you had at 19 years old. So it's a big thing. So I can understand if that hit you very hard.
Yeah, it did. So, from that, I stopped. I quit soccer that year. That was it for me. I was like, well, but I don't know. It was a shift in my mind. I was like, that's it. I'm done with soccer. Broke up with my girlfriend for 7 years. Quit the family business. It just changed everything in me. So it was a big shift.
But as a result of that, you focused your attentions into your investment portfolio, and so so you've gone through this big shift in your life. You've gone for a big realignment of what you wanted to achieve, and then what something's been taken away. So how did that direct you moving forwards?
Well, I kind of realised, after I kind of got myself out of the low point, I realised I had to do something more with the property because, it was what I loved. And I'd been helping a few other people buy as well, like friends and stuff like that, and some family. So I decided looking at becoming a buyer's agent, which I did. I started a company, which I absolutely loved doing, but I kept investing. Yeah. And so... so that was kind of where I just kind of really started spurring on and buying a lot more stuff, and because I realised that was the path I was going to go down.
And you grew your own portfolio. So at that point, so what did you move into being a buyer's agent at that point, or how you generate an income to keep going with your own portfolio? Yeah.
So what happened was when I quit the beers, I'd been in there for 10 years. So they kind of gave me a long service leave. So I was living on that for a bit.
Okay.
I had positive cash flow from the portfolio.
Okay.
So it was kind of a combination of those two things. And then what happened was they offered for me why don't you come back just part-time? We'll put you on a higher salary, because they needed me in the business. I'd become kind of a fundamental part.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So that was good. So I was able to scale it back, but then focus heaps on my investments as well. And that's when I started buying.
So this was 2015, 2016?
16,
2016. Yeah. So And how many did you have in your own portfolio at that stage?
So at that point, I just bought 2 more up here in the growth corridor in Brizzy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over the next 3 years, the market's got hotter generally.
Yes.
I know it was a little bit cooler but certainly Sydney was like red hot around that time. Brizzy was kind of bubbling away, never really kind of got motoring. Where were you buying around that time? So from 2016 up until now?
Yeah, so after the 2 in Brizzy, I came back to Sydney and decided, the 4 previous ones had been very strong cash flow deals.
Yeah.
Like one of the ones in Brizzy I bought, it was an ex-houso, and the thing it was an absolute mess, except for, it was really weird. They had this brand new like Caesar's Dome kitchen in there.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like this old clapped out double brick bloody houso house.
Yeah.
It was a shocker. But yeah, I went up there. I drove up on a Friday night after work, and I did an 8-day reno just back to back, day after day.
Yourself?
And, knocked it all out. And then the Sunday morning I left, drove all the way home from Brizzy down to the Gong and started work on the Monday morning. So I could only get the week off work. But yeah, so that one and the other one I bought, they were pretty heavily positive. The 2 I had in Adelaide were pretty heavily positive. And I realised that the one in Wollongong was the only one kind of holding me back. I had heaps of equity at this point. We're probably rolling into the back end of 2016.
Okay.
Kind of when Sydney was getting to its peak, and my one in my own home had gone up quite a lot in value. So I was able to refinance that one. I think at that point it maybe gone to...
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm actually about to sell it at the moment.
Yeah, rightio.
Yeah, so but yeah, it had gone up to about 700, 750. So it had massive growth. The unit, I decided I was going to sell and put those funds into a duplex.
This one down the Gong.
Yeah, the one down the Gong. Yeah, so I chucked him on the market, mate, because it had been my principal place of residence for quite a while, and I hadn't declared the other one for quite a while. I think it was about 4 years before the other one had become my principal place of residence. So there was a massive amount of capital gains I was actually able to avoid from that, which is good. It's the only way in real estate you can, I guess, not pay excessive CGTs if the thing's your own house. So that was really good that I didn't have to pay too much tax on that, and I could roll almost all those funds into this duplex. And the cash flow I got, I think the duplex deal, I bought that at the end of 2016, which everyone was telling me it was pretty crazy to buy because the market was crazy.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Another one of these really good agent connections. I just picked up this awesome deal. This developer had 1 block left, and he'd had it on really high and had gone all the way down, but then everyone thought there was something wrong with his block, and I ended up pinching it for a steal, put this duplex on it.
It's true though,
it is.
When things are on the market, whether it's a car, a boat, a property, people look at it and they go, still there, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? It does get a smell.
And so no one would touch this thing. And it did. The thing was, it was a little bit tricky. The block was a little bit tricky, but from the retaining walls I'd done on the other one, I knew I could retaining wall this one that would allow me to put the duplex on, which no one else could see. So everyone just thought this thing was just a single dwelling prospect, and I could see the potential for the duplex, and I was able to do it. And I made about 300 grand on that one. And I think it's about 10 grand a year, 11 grand a year or something positive cash flow on that as well. Plus brand new, so massive depreciation. So that is definitely my best deal to date, that one.
Sensational. Yeah. So a snapshot, Sam, now today.
Yeah.
What's the value of your assets right now?
I am providing the 2 deals I got going through this week, or not including those.
Including those.
Including those, I'm up at about 4.5 mil.
And what is the debt that you have on that 4.5 mil?
It's about 2.5 mil.
Okay, so you're in a wonderful position.
Yeah, I like to keep my LVR reasonably low, so it keeps my cash flows really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just an outstanding achievement and a fantastic story as well. In terms of your personal journey and sort of where you've come from and how you've adapted. What you've learned along the way, outstanding stuff. Looking forward for your own personal investment, what are your goals now looking forward?
So I keep wanting to roll. It's worked so well for me. So I do my equity deals and I sell some, I keep some and drag the equity. But
do you have any rules that you adhere to yourself in terms of sort of yields on properties or the LVRs that you go into, or do you keep an open mind and look to take opportunity where you can?
I keep an open mind for most things, but I am pretty much a borderless investor. If I find a sick deal, I'll go and buy it.
Yeah.
Like I've bought unit blocks out the back of strong towns. They're still big towns, like 30,000 people plus, but the yield's there and you can strata title the thing and make equity gains. I'll do it, but then conversely, I'll buy in capital city markets where just one of the units that I'm buying, it's going unconditional next week. It's 20 Ks from the Brizzy CBD. It's got 9% yield. And then another one's, I think, it's about 25 Ks from the Adelaide CBD. That's a little duplex there, and I think that's about 9.5% yield as well. So just kind of picking up little steals where I can, and then doing my equity plays on the side. And I think that's the most important thing. It's combining more than just one strategy. I don't think you can just go out and accumulate just one type of property.
Yeah. I think you diversify. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
As you go along. there is a point where you need to have a strategy where you want to have, zero debt on your portfolio.
Yeah.
So you need to think about whether that's through selling some of it off or, how you sort of get to that point. Yeah. So look, at the old age of 29 right now with, in excess of $4 million worth of property, 10 years time, 39, what is your goal? Where will you be?
Mate, I don't know about 39, but I've got a 30-year goal.
Yeah. Gone far away.
I want to hit 20 before I turn 30.
Yep.
And then I want to hit 30 before I turn 31. It's a pretty ambitious it's a pretty ambitious sort of goal. But at the end of the day, I'm doing really good work, like really solid work with my clients. So I'm making really good money from that on the side with my business. And, as long as I'm making them happy, I'm happy, doing well out of the business as well. And I can funnel that into purchasing more investments for myself. And I just want to keep building it and building my clients' portfolios, building my portfolios, and just, I don't know, mate, 10 years is a long time. I don't know what's going to be like
Sam,
then.
if anyone can, you can. You're a hardworking guy. You've got focus, you've got vision. You've done an outstanding job in your personal journey.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Mate, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
For everyone else tuning in, great to have you on board. Thanks very much for joining us. Unfortunately, Phil Tarrant will be back next week, but you can't have everything. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts. They're all there on the SPI website, and check us out on social media. Make sure you like the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, let other people know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.